Tommy?
Yes, sir.
You know what they usually say when you're having a panic attack? You're having an anxiety attack, right? You know what they say about your breathing?
Probably slow it down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's kind of it.
I did it.
Yeah. If you have a paper bag, you should take that. You should take some deep breaths into it. Deep breaths, Tom.
Yep.
Turns out deep breathing is for suckers.
We're taking on breathing now? Okay. I'm ready. I'm all ears.
We're going to take on breathing. Well, so, all right. We've got a PhD. I don't know what he's a PhD in. He's a mind sale expert and a psychologist. I'm going to guess his PhD is in psychotherapy, psychology.
Sure.
He says that, okay, if you want to take on breathing, that's kind of how I feel like he's characterizing this conversation. Oh, breathing again. He says, okay, if you're going to do this, take medium regulated breaths. Inhale through your nose and exhale with your mouth. Okay. He says both deep and shallow breaths pose their own issues. He says deep breaths have been known to exacerbate the problem by elongating hyperventilation that commonly occurs during a panic attack. And on the other side, breathing too shallowly causes a feeling of suffocation and can increase those feelings. Hallelujah to that, increasing the feelings of terror.
Sure.
I get that. You don't want to shallow breathe. That you just pass right out.
I thought shallow breathe led to the word that you just said. Hyperventilating.
I think that would be hypoventilation. I'm maybe making that up, but I think there's a hypo and a hyperventilation.
Okay, got it.
So you want to be in the Goldilocks zone.
Sure.
Right? You want to be right in the middle. Not too hard, not too soft, not too shallow, not too deep. The Goldilocks zone.
Wow.
But then he says, breathing's for chumps. What you really want to do...
Is he a fish?
So, those are my words.
Oh.
What you really want to do is take off, and this is, I just want you to do me a favor. Let's just back up a minute.
Oh.
Close your eyes. Are you closing your eyes?
Done.
Okay. I want you to do some creative visualization with me.
Okay.
You're taking off your shoes. And you're walking outside.
Oh, yeah.
Right outside your apartment in Los Angeles.
Right outside.
And you're gonna try to distance yourself from the traffic and the noise.
Oh.
And you're gonna take off your shoes and your socks.
Again?
Did you do that already?
I already did that, but I can put them back on and then
put them back on and then take them off again.
Weird.
So now they're off.
Got it.
Really off.
Yeah.
And I want you to put your feet, find some dirt. It might be a small yard. It might be a construction area across from you.
Yep.
And I want you to put your feet in the dirt and go ahead and make fist with your toes.
Oh, McLean style.
In the dirt. Right. Well, I added that.
Oh, okay.
What do you think about that? How do you feel?
Am I standing out there with my eyes closed? Or are my eyes closed just
No.
Because that's actually scary.
No.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if that was part of it.
Totally failed creative visualization number 1.
You're the one that had me wandering into a construction zone with my eyes closed. I'm on top of things, Pete.
Oh, for crying out loud.
No, I get it. So I'm there.
The worst.
No, I'm there. I'm back. Yeah. What is that? I would think that could actually be calming, if only because it's redirecting. It's giving me something to concentrate on, something tactile. Yeah. It's very repetitive, so it's not interesting, but it takes just enough attention to draw it away from something else.
There you go. Look what a smart guy you are. This is what Dr. Stout says. He says that anxiety is just energy, and it can flow out of the body and mind just as quickly as it arrives. And so he recommends this practice. This is not a metaphor. This means you need to go find some dirt and ground yourself. This is grounding. You are sending the anxiety, the energy, back into the earth and giving yourself a reprieve.
Oh.
If you are any sort of misophobe, I would say if you have that abnormal fear of filth or specifically dirt,
this is
probably not for you.
I like the idea of the anxiety going into the ground, but I would still like to be able to control it and unleash it on someone else. That's what my sad superpower is that I could take my anxiety and X-Men it onto someone else, and now they're relatively anxious and I'm doing great. What a terrible Avenger I would be.
Welcome to What's That Smell? A sometimes funny podcast about humans and their anxieties. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Tommy Metz III.
And every week, we each drag one of our deepest, darkest anxieties into the light to share it, learn about it,
and hopefully laugh about it with all of you. Reach out to us. We want to hear from you. Please send us the story of your anxiety to somethingstinky@rashpixel.fm. That's somethingstinky@rashpixel.fm. Okay. All right. And with that, Pete, with your blessing, I will go first.
and you have it.
When I was in 7th grade, I had the chance to sing a solo in front of the entire school, or what I remember as the entire school. It was probably like 8 people. But when you're in 7th grade, 8 people is the world. It was part of a choir concert, and it would just be me and a pianist. And I had chosen to sing What a Wonderful World by Louis Armstrong, partly because of its use in the movie Good Morning Vietnam. Do you remember that entire part of Good Morning Vietnam, which at the time I was obsessed with? It had come out the year before. There's that whole montage about Vietnam, and they play What a Wonderful World in its completion. Does that sound familiar? This is not important.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You do remember that. Okay.
Oh yeah, totally. Oh, absolutely.
That's why that was on my mind. I'm not an old soul. I just always loved that. And then it finishes and he goes, the great Satchmo. And I was like, what's Satchmo? Anyways, back to me. Anyways, I had loved the song. I'd been practicing. And just to relive the moment, Pete, I would like to sing a portion of the song for you. Very short.
Oh, outstanding.
Okay, this is a little glimpse into the past. And I didn't do it with an accent, like with a Louis Armstrong weird accent, because that's probably racism. Here we go. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dogs say goodnight, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Not the best, but how did that sound?
No, that was quite something.
Did anything sound a little bit weird?
It did. I have to tell you, I'm not entirely sure that those are the words, but maybe I've been hearing it wrong all these years.
What do you think I said?
I kind of think you said that the dogs say goodnight at some point, and I'm not sure that's it, Tommy.
Pete, that's exactly what I said. And that's what I said up on that stage in the 7th grade. The bright, blessed day, and the dogs, say goodnight. Of course, the original lyric is the dark, sacred night. But I think this was before the internet. No, this was absolutely before the internet. And so I couldn't just look up lyrics. And I'd always heard it as the dogs say goodnight. I guess meaning like they howl, like dogs howl at night. So they're saying goodnight. I don't know. It never got that far. But I said the dogs say goodnight. And no one noticed.
I bet you really leaned in on it too.
I had a clip. It was weird. No, it was fine. I completely got away with that. No one knew that I said it because you were able to capture it, but potentially because I had sort of warned you that maybe something's coming up. Yeah. No one ever noticed it, and it wasn't until a long time later, Pete, in California. I had graduated from high school, college, moved here, and it was a part of some terrible spoken word poetry at something that I'd gone to years ago, and someone just was saying the words as part of it. And he just said out loud, in the dark, sacred night. And I said, oh no. It's been decades where I have been thinking the exact wrong thing. Pete, that goes to my anxiety today.
Wow.
It is saying words or phrases incorrectly for most of my life and never knowing until it's maybe too late. This is obviously not the greatest anxiety to have, meaning the most serious anxiety, but I think some people can maybe identify with it. And maybe you can too. If you don't mind, I'd like to give you a couple more that I have found out way late in life.
Okay. Good. No, this is great.
Actually, let's see if we can make this a game. If you open a CD, or back in the day, a record, inside there would be a lot of text written about bands or the song lyrics. What were those notes called?
Liner notes.
Liner notes. Well,
yeah.
Until somewhat recently, I've always called them linear notes. I don't know why. They're linear notes. That's just what they are.
Many of them are straight.
Right.
Except for the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Right. And part of this is because these are words that don't come up too much, luckily.
Yeah.
Another one is, what's a word that starts with H that means like a lot of excessive language or exaggeration? He was full of...
hyperbole.
Yep. How do you think I pronounce it?
Hyperbole.
Hyperbole! Hyperbole!
For the win!
Hyperbole for the win. And then the last one, this word does not come up very much, but it's moniker.
Oh.
The word moniker meaning another word for a name. And I have always When I read it, I have always in my head said monkeyer, which is just adorable. Monkeyer, what? The weird part about both liner notes, linear, hyperbole, hyperbole, and monkeyer and moniker is when I would read them to myself, I would read them correctly. Meaning I knew what they meant. And if I heard the word moniker, I knew what it meant. But if I read it, it said monkeyer, even though I knew it had I never brought them together. Does that make any sense at all? I can't really explain that. It does, exists actually. Somehow on print and verbally differently, but I know what they mean. And then this very last one that I've learned legit in the last probably 2 months.
Did you call it Leggett?
I did not. It's we won't worry about making this a game, but it's I have always called it acai berries. Purple berries found on palm trees, known for their antioxidants. Of course, ACAI is pronounced how?
Well, see, now, Tom, you're getting into one that's mine. I've never really known for sure. I've always called it acai.
Close. It's acai. You're supposed to say the ye at the end.
You're
acai.
Supposed to say the ye?
Yes.
Okay, so you're not far off from
other people
on that one.
Okay, good. So anyways, this is a little bit of an anxiety that I have of just because the real fear involved is I wonder how many people I've said it to throughout my life.
Yeah.
These things, it's like having food on your face and no one tells you, but for years, Pete.
Yeah, like decades.
Like you have pizza and then 10 years later they go, by the way, you have pizza on your head. What are you doing with your life? Rethink things. Do you have any connection? We already talked about acai berries, but do you have any kind of connection to this?
I think so. Now, correct me if this is if I'm not thinking about this correctly, but I think you're referring to a trend to malapropisms, right? I mean, that's but maybe not. Like,
can be.
This was the Yogi Berra thing, right? Texas has a lot of electrical votes instead of electoral votes.
Kind of. It
happens when speaking, but
it gets near malapropisms. It gets near spoonerisms, but it's not exactly the same. I did some digging trying to find an actual phobia of this, and I was able to find orthographobia, but that's the fear in which people are afraid of making spelling mistakes.
Okay.
A lot of them get very close. The one that I was closest to be able to find it's a fairly new one. It's called grammar anxiety. And it's the basic idea of...
That sounds like a jacket I'd like to wear.
Grammar anxiety?
Yeah, I'm going to put that one right on. If that's a thing, I want to own it.
It's the idea of that you need to speak and write correctly for social acceptance. It's usually found in people where English is their second language. Mm-hmm. And so they are worried about not being able to fit in. But still, grammar anxiety, there's something in that seems to connect with what I'm saying. Does that...
Totally.
Yeah. Okay.
Totally. Absolutely. And for me, it also, I mean, I feel like I don't have any experiences that come to me off the top of my head where I have just made a buffoon of myself for not pronouncing. So, but this is one of those things that I feel like it's there. I just can't put my finger on it, and suddenly I'm anxious because now I don't know what I said, nor do I remember who I said it to. So who knows when they're going to find pizza on my face.
I wonder if part of this gets into in a very different way, but slightly your imposter anxiety from before.
Yeah.
There's something about being found out. I would like to think that I am a smart person, well-educated, and people pay me to speak in front of them.
I have an undergraduate degree in writing and performance. Like, I should be able to get through this, and yet...
And then you're giving a speech and you say... And as Louis Armstrong said, the dogs say goodnight. And they're like, nope.
Did he say that? We really need to look at that. It's better. I think you could maybe be able to get away with it in a speech.
Because they'll be like, oh, interesting. I get it. Yeah, if you TED Talk it, they'll just assume that it's smart.
Oh, yeah. And somebody will go and look for it and put it on Lyric Genius. And suddenly you are...
Right.
You are a great
I'm
find.
the genius.
You're the cultural ideologue. Well done.
But yeah, being involved in corporate training at times, I'll be speaking in front of 300 people at a time. That's not a lot, but it's a lot for some people. And with young storytellers, this week, I'm actually leading what's called a big show for young storytellers, and it involves hundreds of people. And with that involved, because one-to-one, if I was to make a mistake in front of someone, it's kind of embarrassing, but I'm a fairly self-deprecating person already. I'm pretty easygoing about pride, so that's not the issue. It's the idea of being paid to teach people, and that bubble bursting immediately. Because imagine if someone said that they knew a lot about computers, and they pronounced the word meme as mimi.
Yeah.
Pete, that happened to me recently. someone called it a meme to me recently. And it kind of changed my perception of that person a little bit. I got to be honest.
Sure it does.
I was
Sure it
nice
does.
because I have this anxiety. Instead of saying it's meme, I said, I think I've heard it as meme, but maybe you're right. That's how I always do it. Because that's enough to maybe they'll look it up. That's enough of saying you might have pizza on your face, but who's to say?
So my kids go to this camp, and I think that maybe you've just defined why I love this camp so much. The saying at this camp, it's called Camp Trackers, and they're just amazing. And they have this like Bill of Rights thing. And one of the elements of this Bill of Rights is you should always be learning, right? You should always be learning something new. And we're going to learn without judgment. If you're doing something wrong, then you need to be in a position to accept guidance. And if you see somebody doing something wrong, you need to be in a position to offer guidance in a non-judgmental way. And so they have these T-shirts. I have a T-shirt, and it has like a dragon on the top of it. And the saying is, you're doing it wrong, do it better. Right?
Okay.
Now, I understand how that sounds. If culturally we are
brash.
attuned to receiving, that sounds very harsh, and we're used to hearing something like "you're doing it wrong" as something that is hard and full of judgment. And I think that what these kids, thousands of kids every summer and throughout the year during their apprentice programs, are taught is that it's okay if you deliver it right. It's okay to say, "Hey, that's what you're doing there isn't right. Let me show you how to do it better. You're doing it wrong, but I can help you improve." And that I find very touching.
Yeah.
And it's funny, and it leads us to talk about it, by saying you're doing it wrong, do it better. But the result is everybody's learning and everybody's teaching. Now, I run into this all the time when I'm teaching too. I teach at a university and with mostly adult students. And it's really scary teaching now because the students have at their fingertips the combined collection of all world knowledge. And I have what's in my head and what I was able to put in my keynote presentation earlier in the day, right?
Yeah.
And so it has taken me the better part of a decade to figure out how to say out loud, man, I'm glad you caught that. Let's explore what I had wrong on my PowerPoint slide. Let's explore that some more, because what I have is clearly dated. It's not a reflection on me. It's a reflection on the fact that these people are, they have access to much more than I do. We have to change the way the way I teach as a result of that. And so I know this is a total sidetrack.
It's not, though, because I like the idea of taking away from the anxiety and realizing, I mean, especially with teaching, it should be a collaborative process. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to be a king. You're having a conversation, not leading from a pulpit. So I love that idea.
Yeah. Well, and it gets all the way back to what you kicked off this little intellectual seizure I had here with I've heard it meme, but in fact, Tommy, it's meme. It's meme.
I do.
And yeah, well, yes, it's meme. Let me just go ahead and tell you, it's meme.
Oh, good.
So you can I feel like you can take ownership of that, and you can say, hey, it's meme. By the way, it's not memey. Just so you know, it's not a thing that's a question. That you have it on authority from experience that it's not memey.
Sure.
And it's okay to say that. You're doing it wrong. Do it better. That's why I bring that up.
That still sounds confrontational to me. I got to be honest.
Something just to keep in the back of your mind, Tommy. It'll grow on you.
Yeah, at some point when I officially become an adult, that sounds like how a normal conversation should go. Instead, I just sort of run away and yell the word meme over my shoulder, and then I jump into an Uber.
I need to tell you just about my state of mind. I'm exhausted today. I didn't sleep. I had a stressful night, no sleep, stress and anxiety. I couldn't get to sleep. And you know what that does to you the next day? You're a mess.
Sure.
You're a disaster.
Absolutely.
That's me. I'm a disaster. And so, of course, as a disaster, I'm driving around and I'm listening to the news, Tom.
Ooh, that's fun.
It makes me just hate people. I think there was a time when I trusted politicians, for example, but I'm pretty sure that's before I could read.
But you knew what politicians were, and you said, "Hey, okay."
Yeah. And then I started reading, and every day I would pick up the Times, and out the window. And I think I started getting wrapped into my parents' politics first, right? Generally centrist when I was young and more progressive over time and gluten. And then I went to college and, everyone has to be an advocate in college, and suddenly politicians truly sucked. Like, it wasn't just this sort of generalized air of suck. It is a true sucking vacuum of suck everywhere. They're the worst because I'm in college and I am an advocate.
Yep.
They're just the worst. And so, I'm home for break in college. Is probably between sophomore and junior year, maybe junior, senior. I don't know. And I was driving around with my parents. We had gone to the fine Mexican restaurant La Casita, which I consumed fajitas. That's all I ate at La Casita. It's easy pick.
It's great to know.
And then we drove down North Nevada Avenue, and we stopped at a light only to see our local councilman picking up a prostitute.
What? You did? For real?
Yes. Now, you have to know, my father and I was in undergraduate in broadcast journalism. My father had been a journalist, all of my life growing up. My first job was in his newsroom.
So you guys are already wearing hats that say scoop on them. Got it.
Right. And we knew these faces. We knew this area of town. We knew this thing. And so it was very easy to look down this street. And North Nevada at that time was, that's where you went for prostitutes.
Sure.
It's just kind of what was going on.
How were you able to see him? Was he not?
Well,
I'm sorry, was
right
it a
on
he?
The street.
Was he not in a car? Was he standing in front of one of his posters?
By a car. No, it was by a car. So now we're screwed. I have this belief deep in my heart that our public servants are out there doing good work on our behalf every day, which is tested every hour by the ones that are tragic non-examples of moral judgment, right? It is bananas to me that I open the newspaper or click around a few links on the web and find nonsense, just nonsense, that it's causing me to get just worked up every day. There is nobody out there who has our best interests at heart, right? They have their best interests at heart, and hopefully those two things at some point align like dueling sine waves. So last week, I talked about how needles make me pass out, and that's legit. Like, that is a legit phobia. I don't yet pass out from politicians, and apart from getting my ire up, I can generally maintain composure.
Okay.
But I did a little research.
About... Is this about that same senator or whatever it was? That same congressperson?
No. No, that's long past. It's called, Tom, politicophobia.
Politicophobia, sure.
It is the exaggerated or irrational fear or dislike of politicians.
So not politics, but politicians.
No, politicians, the people. And all of the symptoms of panic ensue: rapid heart rate, feelings of dread, feelings of terror. It is exacerbated by the era of mistrust. We didn't trust our leaders 30 years ago, but suddenly I'm taken to Jack Nicholson in Batman, right? Wait till they get a load of me.
People do seem trying to up their game. Yes.
Right? Now it's fire and fury. Now it's the missiles are coming. And this sort of language takes that political mistrust and turns it up to 11. So now there's a sense that not one single one of them clearly and obviously has our best interests at heart. So much so that it's actually being studied by smart people.
Oh, smart people.
And they're Canadians.
Smart Canadians.
You know what?
The dogs say goodnight.
University.
Yep. Sorry, that's the new way to say, oh no, is just to yell, the dogs say goodnight. I'm washing my hands of it. The dogs say goodnight.
You got it. I'll put it on the soundboard.
Okay, good.
University of Toronto psychologists say that, quote, Trump-induced fear of nuclear war is a normal reaction.
A normal reaction?
Yeah, that is becoming a standard. Threats to life and safety, fear of being in constant danger, these things are exacerbated when you have no sense that your elected officials have their eyes on the road to protect you. And it gets even better than that. Shmuel Lissek is the founding director of a laboratory at the University of Minnesota. And I have to take a break and say that he works for the best laboratory that I have ever heard in acronym.
Oh.
It's all capitals.
Okay.
It's all capital letters. He is the founding director of the Angst Laboratory at University of Minnesota.
That's awesome. That's perfect. Wait, what does it stand
is.
for? I mean, because that angst is perfect, but they must have gone through a bunch of runaround in order to make it work.
I don't know, Tommy. I think this really rolls off the tongue. Anxiety neuroscience grounded in cross-species translation. So they left out the C.
I'll allow it. I will allow it. I like it.
Because it's too good.
Yeah.
Anyway, Shmuel Lissick, he says from an evolutionary perspective, organisms that were overly cautious in the face of low probability threats were more likely to survive and pass on their genes. And humans inherited those genes. We are hardwired to err on the side of caution. And in this day and age, erring on the side of caution can be exacerbated by the news, the media attention, and the general sense of noise around information. He says, so when there's a very small probability threat that is of very high intensity, we tend to worry more instead of not worry at all, he says. And this, Tom, leads to, I think, the mother of all anxieties.
Oh.
And I've decided I should have probably waited until our penultimate episode to do this to you, but I'm going to do it now. I'm going to play this card now and see what you have left over. It is apocalypse anxiety.
Eesh.
Yeah.
May I ask a follow-up?
Sure.
Do you know if that has to do with, is it always man-made? Could it be biblical? It's across the board, the end of the world.
Oh, no, it's definitely it's definitely end of the world thanks to threat of nuclear war.
Oh, it is.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
okay,
yeah.
so we're okay.
No, it is man-made, right?
Yeah.
Here. Right here. Yeah. Fear of nuclear war. Well, and the way they talk about it is fear of nuclear war or some sort of apocalypse in general, but it only came around since around the Second World War. Right? Mm-hmm. It's not a thing people were talking about as an anxiety in, good old Macedonia. Like, this is a thing that is a child of modernity. It's a child of us having
phobia.
Nuclear. Yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. It is a child of modern warfare. And so here you go. And this is where I pose these questions to you, and you don't necessarily have to answer them. But
I'm going to answer questions, and I'm going to answer them.
Okay.
Right.
Well, let's see. Okay, well, let's see if that's even possible. I look forward to you throwing your all into it. Therapist Michael Salas at Vantage Point Counseling has a few things to ask yourself the moment apocalypse anxiety strikes.
Ugh. Okay, wait, let me get in the moment. Okay, I'm there.
Close your eyes.
I'm on the construction site. I'm making fists with my toes. Got it, go ahead.
If the event were to happen in the future, how would worrying about it now help?
Preparation. Oh, apocalypse. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't, I guess. If it's talking about the end of the world, no amount of canned goods or guns that I buy will make a difference, I guess.
Right.
So I guess the rational way of saying that is it wouldn't.
I don't keep score.
Sure.
I don't want to know now, but I want you to tell me if you're feeling better or worse, knowing that you didn't have this anxiety before I started talking.
Right. I know this. I appreciate this. Irrationally preparing or prepping would give me a sense of control, but if we're talking about the apocalypse, it would be false control.
Now, knowing that there is a lot of gray area between here and Apocalypse Town, that's fine.
Good point.
Number 2, what evidence do you have that the catastrophic event is going to happen?
It's tough. I mean, evidence that I can really believe in? I don't know. I mean, it's tough because we obviously have an administration right now which does not shy away from using very strong language in public in ways that past administrations have shunned away from. But also with that comes a lot of bluster. I don't know. I feel like would have more information and also less information at the exact same time, which does not help at all with the anxiety.
Right. Exacerbates the anxiety in many regards. So number 3, and this is one that's harder to sort of answer cleanly. What is the difference between cautious, fearful, and worried? How do you define each of these, and which would you most want to feel?
Cautious, fearful, and worried. Those are interesting. I would love to say that I would just be cautious. That seems like the safest one to use or to be because it seems like the less debilitating, but I'm not sure. What would you say to some of these?
Well, if I was in an anxiety state, it would be fearful, right?
Absolutely.
If there's somebody else that I'm actually, if there's health and safety of friends or family are at stake, I'm worried. But generally, for me, if I'm talking sort of selfishly, I would want to be in a space of caution, of
ready to act, but not letting it consume you. Sure,
and trying to be aware of what the what the stakes are like at any given moment. Because I'm definitely one of those. If we're reaching an apocalyptic scenario, I'm going straight for the ho-hos and the ding-dongs. I'm gonna and
you're gonna live it up.
We'll drink every single drop of my refrigerator wine, and like that. I am. I just want to say that's where I go. Like cautious, fearful, worried, and I don't know what's the word that I am.
I picture that you just have like a do not break until emergency, and it's just filled with Franzia.
Yeah.
There's like Franzia and like a knife, and you don't even know what the knife is to punch open the Franzia.
Rusted. It's exactly right.
It's a rusted knife, and you just punch it in because it pours too slowly. Okay,
that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, there's one more question, and this is the one that I think is probably worth reflecting on the most for all of us. It ties back to politicophobia too, and our general feelings of angst around our politicians and those that we have elected to serve us. And that is, what is the information that's being presented, and how valid is the resource delivering it?
There's the big one.
That's the big one, and it could seem silly to have these kinds of questions, but you know what? It takes the fear and the anxiety and tries to make it less abstract. It tries to help you put words to making the anxiety less abstract. And in that regard, I like it. I like just being able to reframe, to stop what I'm doing and ask myself, what do I know? What is truth and fact? And sometimes all I know is that, right now, the sun is setting. That's all I know. I don't really know anything else. I don't have fact on anything else. I know what time it is. That's about it. And so stopping and saying that I'm existing in truth and fact can be a grounding element for me. So
very much so. And along that same line, consider your sources. If it's just from one source, I don't trust some of my family members, and I love them. If they tell me that they did something, it's like, yeah, that happened. And then what did Beyonce say, you liar? But instead, otherwise it becomes urban legend. If you just hear a crazy story from one person or from one side, that's how urban legends are born. Instead, if you're able to find it from multiple sources, really try to figure out and just get past the noise, like you said, and really try to figure out what's out there, it can help. Because unfortunately, we talked about the news before. The news is in the business at times of screaming at us and saying that the world is on fire, but they'll tell us at 11.
True.
And it's 9, and you're like, but am I on fire right now? I cannot wait till 11 before I drink my refrigerator wine. So I think that also is a good point, especially with politicophobia and all of the apocalypse fears, is as much as you can, try to get as many different sources as possible. Really try to see, is this a real thing, or is this one person that is just trying to get me all riled up as much as possible? That's why I get all my news from Etsy. Etsy's everything is doing fine. It's just a bunch of doilies and homemade necklaces. I mean, Pete, the world is looking up.
I'd like to see Sean Hannity's Etsy page. That's got to be a delight.
What would be on it? Burnt pillows?
I don't know. It'd be doilies, but they would be what the presidential seal would look like with Hannity as the president. It's all Hannity doilies.
Yeah. I like Sean pins. That's all it is. Stick around for a glimpse into next week's show. But first,
today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial when you sign up at www.audibletrial.com/scent of a podcast. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or other MP3 player. It's amazing.
It's amazing. It's kind of like a magic trick. You guys, I love Audible. For this week's podcast, I would like to suggest the Audible book Lexicon, written by Max Berry, because in my anxiety, I talked about how the worry of getting words wrong can lead to anxiety or to public embarrassment. Instead, Max Berry takes us into a alternate universe where students aren't taught just history, geography, or mathematics. They are instead taught to persuade. And through a magical mix of different kind of words, they are able to change events around them and control the world. It is actually the weaponization of words, and it is fantastic. Max Berry's written other books, including Syrup, which is one of me and my friends' favorites. Either way, this week I would say Lexicon by Max Berry. I'm an enormous fan. It is 12 hours and 36 minutes, so maybe just make a hell of a lot of soup ahead of time and just sort of keep it next to you. I would suggest minestrone, but again, Lexicon, and again, Audible is fantastic.
Now wait,
and it's the one for us.
I can't believe he has this. I didn't even know he had this out. But let me tell you, you should also go get Jennifer Government and Company. Those are also great.
Yes,
I love all those books.
I love all those books. He's
wonderful.
A great writer,
and so definitely do that for you, listeners of What's That Smell. Audible is offering this free audiobook download, 30-day free trial to sample as much as you want to sample and give you the opportunity to check out their service. If you decide not to stick it out, you cancel within 30 days, you keep the book. You can keep this Max Berry genius, Lexicon, and never have to hear from Audible again. Really, you don't. You can just break up with them. All you have to do is visit www.audibletrial.com/scent-of-a-podcast to get started today.
And guys, real quick, we've been getting some amazing feedback from the episodes, and we appreciate you so much. And we really just want to say the best way that you can help the podcast, if you've been enjoying what you're hearing, is give us a 5-star review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, and then please give us a comment. Let us know what you like about the show, and then share it with at least one other person that you like. You can put it on Facebook if you want. That'd be amazing. If not, 1 or 2 people, 1 person each, you share it with them and say, give this a try. It's the best way to help the show so we can continue to deliver the stuff that you're hopefully enjoying. So thank you so much.
Coming up next week, you're a Ding Dong fan. Ding Dong's a chocolate cake with a creamy filling.
What?
And probably it would involve pork rinds and Schlitz beer. Those are the 3 things.
Okay. This is already a disaster. I'm putting you on probation. I'm starting again. Here we go. Hey, Pete. Episode 10. Let's do this. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Call for Help by Pete and Tommy. This took place about 4 years ago. I was out wogging in my apartment. That's the combination of walking and jogging. And
Tom, don't ever use that word again.
It's an Olympic thing. It's cool.
Thank you all for joining us today. Our tune is Folk Rock Clubbers Club by Fable and the World Flat. Totally check these guys out. They're amazing. Until then, I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Tommy Metz III. Thank you so much for downloading. We'll be back next week on What's That Smell?
Keep calling up the road.